Welcome back to another episode of I Wish They Knew, a show where we share big ideas that deserve more attention in about the time it takes to enjoy a cup of coffee. I'm Joe Hirsch. Today's wish comes from Robert Glazer. Robert is the founder and chairman of the board of Acceleration Partners, a global partner marketing agency, and the recipient of numerous industry and company culture awards. Robert's also the best-selling author of 6 books, most recently, The Compass Within. And he also hosts the Elevate podcast, where he and I had the chance to talk just actually not so long ago at all.
Wow.
And he appeared back on this program back on, I think it was episode 214. We'll drop that in the show notes as well. Robert, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
All right. I feel like we just had this conversation, home and away series.
Exactly.
Exactly. This will be fun.
See if I can win the second game.
That's right. It's, best of three, man. So what do you wish more people knew?
I wish more people had the clarity on their values. I think a lot of people do make decisions based on their values, but I call it like the invisible fence theory. Hitting the electric fence that you can't see and knowing, ow, I shouldn't go there. That's how a lot of people navigate. Oh, stay away from there, kind of stay away from that part of the field, that part of the field. Like there's a lot of hurt in figuring out where you should be. So if you can actually have the clarity on this and have the words, I just think you make much better decisions.
And that's what this book is about, The Compass Within, about finding, aligning, and executing on those values. And so I want to just start, I guess, like at the top. So many people want to live by their values and abide by those values, but so many times we're not doing it right. Where are we getting this wrong?
Yeah, it's a little performative, I think, for a lot of people. I think they're choosing things that, or they're recalling things that maybe were important to their community and not them, or parents' values, or one word key list, versus saying most of these things, and the data is that your values are formed by the time you're 20. They happen from these early formative experiences in which you decide, I really like that, it's important to me, or I really don't like that, and I want to do the opposite. When I talk to people about their values, it comes down to a for or against almost any time. And so they're really kind of letting a lot of external influence come into the process rather than being like, very honestly, what do I value? And actually, I was talking with someone this morning who I've been doing this work with, sort of a religious figure. And one thing he said back to me is that the problem for a lot of people is a lot of these don't sound good. They're true, but they don't sound like something they want. Like someone truthfully might have a value of be skeptical, and ask. And if you, most of those times I found that person grew up in a conspiracy theorist family, right? And so there is an environment where it pays to be skeptical, and it's where it's really good to be skeptical, and then they can do that. But I thought it was interesting he made that comment, because people might want to put some polish on that or not, but that's really their value, is to like ask hard questions or be skeptical. It's not something like that sounds super pretty and marketing oriented. So this is why I think people lean away from a little bit doing that work and just being like, I am who I am. And actually, like, there's ways to play to that. And there's ways to make sure I don't, get in environments that is problematic.
So how would I define my core values? I mean, a core value has to be different than just a universal nicety, right? So how do I know if it's core to me?
It's the top of the stack. We all have things we value, but do they come into that primary decision-making sequence? Are they things that get under our skin when they're violated? That's sort of core. So I think core is the non-negotiable principles that guide your behavior and decisions. Some values, like there's something, I don't know, like I might be on truth. I mean, I'm okay with white lies, right? But I have problems with a dark lie. And so for me, they're the non-negotiable principles. They're intrinsic, not aspirational. They reflect who you are, not who you wish you were. They're consistent. They show up across areas of life, work, and relationship, and they're clarifying. They help you make better choices about who you spend time with, the work to do, your communities, et cetera. So I have lots of things that I value and that are important to me, but this is like the top of my stack where the red lines, not the kind of dotted lines, come into play.
Yeah. So you've really done the work to filter through those values and to define for yourself what is most essential.
And if I go back to the wish from the beginning, my wish is that people would do this. I have made the book, the courses, all the stuff. If you want the 6 questions, you can go to robertglazer.com/6. The 6 questions you can start asking yourself. This work took me months and months and months. I have probably boiled it down into like a couple hours of upfront work and then ongoing, but people are still looking for like the cheat sheet version. I'm like, look, if you really want to do this work, you shouldn't be looking for the least amount of time that you could spend on it.
I was in one of these values. I guess I could call it like a values training session. And they had us write down what are our top 3 values, but they said, do it in one word, like one word values.
I just don't think you can make a decision based on a one word value. I've heard people even 10 different definitions of integrity. And I like core values as I know if I'm doing it in a value making, decision making rubric. So there's a guy recently I was talking to, he's a very well known author, and he was like, my core value is I zig when others zag. And if you look at his life, like it's defined by this, right? So if he said different, right? Is that something you'd be like, all right, I have a decision. Like, is it different? Like, I don't know what that means. But if they said, look, do you want to be the first person to publish your book on this platform and try something totally different than any traditional publisher has ever done? He'd be like, yeah, I like that's zagging and that's zigging. If your core value is worded well, you should really know when you're doing it and not doing it, and it should help you make decisions. And I haven't seen a one word core value that meets that threshold.
So actionable and not just aspirational.
Correct. And also like common one, family.
Yeah.
How does family is a priority. How does family help you at work? Honestly, some people mean family, they mean always be there and show up. Others mean stand by your people. And by the way, that's not my definition of family. Like I am not willing to like cover up for a family member who like committed a crime, but that's some people's definition, right? You stand by your people no matter what. Family is really important to me. That's not my definition. Like I think that family should have values and you should do that stuff. So family means a lot of different things, but show me how someone shows up to for their family. Like we'll dig into one question deeper and they're like, it means X. And I can show you that's how they show up as a friend and as a leader and in other areas of their life.
So this book really was written as a parable, and I thought it was an interesting way to approach the topic. And what happens here is the main character ends up going sort of outside his immediate circle and talks to an outsider, to a CEO of another company, about what are his values, and the CEO helps him navigate that. To me, going through the process of identifying our core values is inner work. It's the inside game of knowing yourself. But yet in this parable, he went outside. So I wondered if you could talk about the distinction here of the inner game versus the outer game, looking inside, looking out. Say more about that.
It's a little like cobbler's kids. And unfortunately, I can talk to people in like 5 minutes now and figure out their values. If they've done the raw work, I can kind of boil it down because I've learned to pay attention to not what they're saying, but the sentiment of what they're saying. Unfortunately, I haven't figured out a way to scale that. I'll let you know when I do that. But when you think about cobbler's kids, like I'm a marketing person. I've never been able to do the work for our own company. I think sometimes we all take a little outside prodding and structure and people asking questions. And the way you sort of cure your values is to road test them or ask people or, ask your partner. And they're like, yeah, that's totally you. And do I get upset about this? Yes. Like every time. And so it's not, he went to outside help because he sort of needed the structure and the framework to do the inner work. But it is a reflective process. And I think the people that have done the most reflection, honestly, including where did these originate? Again, my core value may be something around like be skeptical, or I'm trying to think, how do I say that in a little nicer way, or challenge the assumption.
Challenge assumptions.
Yeah, challenge the assumption. Right. And that's honest. And I may not want to say that, but if I actually look down to, and I remember, again, I grew up in a lot of times I've heard this, again, no, I'll be agnostic, but people grow up in these religious environments that are very dogmatic and they were told not to question things. And then they saw behavior that was completely the opposite of what they're being told. And then they kind of formed this value of, oh, I'm going to, you know what? I took everything at face value and I'm going to question assumptions. And I think like, again, we're not going back to repair it or deal with that. You want to sit down with a therapist, that's totally different work. But acknowledging that is super important. Like, this is where it came from. It's really important to me. It is a strength. Overused, it's a weakness. I believe that all weaknesses or strengths overused, for most people. And if I put myself in the right environments, this is my superpower.
I'm wondering if our core values shift as life changes. What do you think of that?
Yeah, the data would actually say that in most cases our values do not change over time because again, it's this software that was sort of written to run our hardware, when we were younger. When the data says that most of them are formed by 20, when they do change, you typically have had a formative experience, oftentimes health or relationship later in life. So I think what is going on when people perceive they're changed or I'm different or whatever. Yeah, like there are a lot of things that different. I was explaining to someone last week because they were challenging me on this, and I was saying, look, I have a core value of find a better way and share it. In my 20s, I believed a better way was achievement and more and more and more. So now in my 40s and 50s, I look at that differently. I still am trying to figure out the best way to do something. It's just that with some experience and wisdom, I have some trial and error, and I actually think that the answers are maybe different,
Hmm.
right?
It's like a hardware software analogy. Like
Yeah,
it's
but
core to who you are.
it's more of like, yeah, it's core of who you are. Like it's the software, but again, you're running a different program. So what's
Mhm.
most happening when people are really pushing on this and they're like, but I'm different or whatever, there's been a change in priorities. Okay, that makes sense. Maybe not values. Maybe there's been a change in a priority of your value. For a lot of people, health moves up that stack quickly, but it moves up that stack usually when they or someone they love has a real near death or health experience that puts that kind of front and center. So that does count in that change. You actually didn't have the right values, right? You were kind of like talking about this aspirational stuff and never kind of admitting who you were, or you had the right values but you've been out of alignment with it for a long time and so it's been bothering you, right? You've been living in a workplace or been in a relationship that is forcing you outside of that, and so what you're actually feeling is the pain of disconnect, not I need to change my value to match the situation. That is not how it works.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it's not you, it's the circumstances that you're in that
The
have changed.
biggest thing this is a filter for circumstances. It's funny, I
Mm.
haven't used that word, but because I talk about decisions. But circumstances in relation to your community and other people and decisions and your jobs, there are environments based on your values that are inherently better suited for you than other environments and people for that matter.
So let's say you're up against one of these major life decisions, life quake decisions that will change the course of how you work, how you feel, how you live. What if the decision that we're leaning towards is in alignment with some of our values, but not all? Do we
Yeah.
have to go for everything or can we
No.
get just a few?
Values should be in harmony, not unison, right? When you think
Okay.
about a relationship and my spouse, like our values are harmonious. One of them has some danger areas, as I like to call it. What you can't be is in direct opposition to on multiple things. I think in most places you can be in direct opposition in like one and learn to dance around it. If you have three core values, Joe, and I'm the opposite of all three, and we're in some relationship together, personal, professional, otherwise, we have to wake up every day and navigate around that. No matter how great you are, that is going to consume so much energy. Imagine even at work, you're a live for the day person, and we have some good reasons, and I'm a plan for tomorrow person, and you're a do it myself, and I'm a include others, and like we're just going to come every day with an opposite orientation. It's like
That's draining.
yeah, it's like you're a Mac running Mac software, and I'm trying to run my PC software on your Mac, and we can do it. It's just going to consume a ton of energy.
Yeah, that idea of harmonizing is I think the right way to put it. Trying to find the balance between as many of them as possible.
Yeah. There are ones that are not the same, but not problematic. And then there are ones that are inherently problematic because they're diametrically opposed. I could give you, I'll save the whole story, but a really good reason about why someone comes to a marriage and has a orientation of you live for today. And then another pretty traumatic story of why you plan for tomorrow, and understand that like, if they're married and that is their dominant core value, that is some work that they're going to have to do around. One is we spend all our money and we do everything today, right? And the other is like, oh, that causes like panic in me,
You
right?
just press the red button.
Yeah.
Yeah. The book is The Compass Within, and I found a lot of value in this conversation with Robert Glazer. Robert, thanks for sharing your wish with us today.
Joe, thank you.